It was another huge weekend of college basketball. Some big time matchups took place this weekend. I will say some of these bigger matchups ended up being blowouts and not really good games at all. Like Arizona pretty much handled Kansas in a revenge game there. Texas Tech handled Iowa State pretty much. And, Florida absolutely obliterated Arkansas. So some of these bigger games were kind of, lackluster when it came down to it. But still, it was a big weekend. Still a lot of good games and a lot of good matchups. And we're going to talk about a few things here. The game of the day in my opinion, was Alabama at Tennessee. And not just saying that because I'm an Alabama fan. I'm saying that because, again, a lot of these ranked matchups kind of just fell flat because one team just blew the other team out. Um, but this Alabama Tennessee game was a ranked matchup, number 17 versus number 22, I believe it was. Alabama at Tennessee, and Alabama wins 71-69. I think Alabama led for all of 20 seconds in this game, and it was the last 20 seconds of the game. Um, Pretty much the whole game, Tennessee had this game in hand, was winning the game from the first bucket all the way to 20 seconds left. And pretty much the whole game, there were times where Tennessee had a 12-point lead, I believe. Yeah, in fact, that was the lead at halftime, 40-28. And they held I felt like it was like 6 to 8 points most of this game. And it's just like Bama could not get over the hump and kind of even it up with Tennessee, but they just hung around and hung around. And for a lot of this game, it was Alabama would make a shot, but Tennessee would respond. And I'm telling you guys, rebounding is going to be a huge issue for Alabama going forward. They allowed Tennessee, I think it was ended up being around 25 offensive rebounds in this game. 25, 17 in the first half. It was bad. Um, and so giving that a team that many chances, second chances, it's going to be tough to again get over that hump. But man, you got to give it to Alabama to keep fighting, and they kept fighting and ended up chipping away at that lead and made some shots down the stretch. And LeBaron Philon Jr. man, just he came off the bench. I know he's probable for this game with an injury. He did play and came off the bench and just took over the game, hit the pretty much the game winner with like 20 seconds left to give Alabama the lead. And the only lead they had was with like 20 seconds left. Finally hit this step back jumper in the middle of the lane over Felix Akpara. Just a great shot. Latrell Wrightsell Jr. is really, really playing well for Alabama right now. Had 25 points. Without him, they would have been toast because he was hitting some timely buckets all night long. Um, so man, that was a great game though for Bama to chip away and come back and to silence the crowd and get revenge on Tennessee. Tennessee had a 5 game winning streak on Alabama. Alabama wins the game after being down almost the whole game. Just made some really big plays there at the end and somehow withstood getting out rebounded badly. But I think that was the best game of the weekend. Um, you also have to hand it to St. Mary's beating Gonzaga, getting revenge there. It just seems like St. Mary's is always the team that that trips Gonzaga up at least once a year. And then come tournament time, they always lose to me. Like in the first, I feel like in the first round, I don't know the last time they made it to the Sweet 16, to be honest. But got to give it to them, beating Gonzaga, getting their best win of the season easily. And, they were down in the first half, but just really came out in that second half and owned Gonzaga. So, got to hand it to St. Mary's there for a great performance in the West Coast Conference. And curious to see how that tournament plays out. I'd still favor Gonzaga there, but still got to hand it to St. Mary's for winning that game. Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on here, I didn't learn this weekend, but it's becoming clearer that the 3 teams at the top of the polls have kind of separated themselves. All right, so you got Duke at number 1, Arizona at number 2, and Michigan at number 3. These 3 teams, to me, are kind of creating a gap between everybody else. Duke absolutely obliterated Virginia, who was like a 25-3 team, now 25-4 after losing to Duke. Just absolutely got obliterated. Virginia did. It was like 77-51. Not even an interesting game at all. Duke is just that much better, and they are just handling their business. Beat Michigan last week. Just an outstanding team. And again, we said this in another video. I got to give it to John Shire. Just a just a great job he's doing. Taking over for the legend, one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach of all time, Mike Krzyzewski took over for him, and they haven't even skipped a beat, not one bit. In fact, you could even say that they were better than in those final years with Coach K. Now, they're better now. I mean, they're just they're just killing it, man. Just doing so good. And Cameron Boozer's just an absolute stud. I think Player of the Year, National Player of the Year. They handled Virginia thoroughly. They're just taking care of business. I mean, just so good on both ends of the court, especially defensively, just staggering. Um, then you look at Arizona, handled Kansas. They did let Kansas kind of get back into that game, but then just blew them out. Went on multiple really nice runs that just put Kansas down. So another really good outing there, and Darren Peterson had a pretty good game, and actually played in this game. And Arizona, still handled Kansas, a good Kansas team, but handled them, blew them out. And Arizona has really taken care of business all season. Yes, they had a couple of games where they slipped up um, against against Kansas and Texas Tech. But hey, you're sitting at like, what are they, 28-2, 26-2? This is a really, really good team. And they took care of business yesterday against a good Kansas team, handled them. And they sit at number two in the polls. And then number three, Michigan handled Illinois at Illinois on Friday night. That's a tough place to play, tough opponent, really good offense, and just they just handled Illinois. And I'm not. This wasn't really a blowout, but they always kept Illinois at arm's length. No matter what Illinois would do, Michigan would respond, and they have been impressive all year long. Only two losses to Wisconsin and Duke, um, and they've just taken care of business in the Big Ten. They're going to be Big Ten champs. There's no doubt. Um, Regular season, that is. It's going to be awesome to see this Big Ten tournament. But man, these three teams, Duke, Arizona, and Michigan, easily one seeds. I think they could lose the rest of the season and still be one seeds. To be honest, that's how good these teams have been, and I think each of them, have a very clear path to win their conference tournaments. You can make a very easy case for them winning their conference tournaments, and if they do that, you know, I mean, they're already clearly one seeds, but that would even just solidify it even more and create the gap even more. These teams are really, really good, and I think easily Final Four contenders. I don't know if all three are going to make it, but they absolutely could. These are really, really, really good teams. Only two losses for each of them, and it's fitting that they're the top three teams. I think they're easily the top three teams, easily the top three seeds, and that come the NCAA tournament time. And that's how I'd have them right now. Duke number one, Arizona two, and Michigan three in terms of seeding. And you could argue that maybe say Michigan should be a little bit higher than Arizona, but I think that's where it should be right now. Maybe even Arizona at one over Duke, but these three are the best teams. So that fight for the final one seed is kind of interesting. You got teams like Houston, Purdue, UConn, and Florida, I think, are kind of the four most likely teams. Maybe Iowa State you could throw in there too, but I think those four teams probably are the most likely. And right now, I'm gonna be honest, I think Florida kind of has the inside track to get that final one seed. And you may say, "Oh no, it's got to be UConn." I don't prefer UConn here, and the reason is they have so many close calls. Like they barely beat Seton Hall the other day or yesterday. But not just that, it's like they lost to Creighton, one of the worst teams, and not one of the worst teams in the Big East, but not a good team. They're like 14-19 on the season. They beat UConn. That's by far the worst loss of any of these top teams. And I know Florida had some struggles early in the non-conference and a couple games in SEC play, but like they have been dominating the SEC, just absolutely obliterated Arkansas, like a 111-77. They've looked so good recently, and their metrics are rising. I think they kind of have the inside track to get that last one seed. Um, I think I think they're going to have more opportunities than UConn. And Purdue has kind of stumbled a little bit here down the stretch, and they're losing Ohio State right now, as we speak. They could lose that game, and then definitely I think they're done. But um, you look at, I think Houston could have a shot too, because I mean Houston could win the Big 12 tournament. There's no doubt they have that capability. They're going to have a lot of opportunities. So I think when you look at Houston and Florida, they have more opportunities than UConn does. and they've looked more consistent to me than UConn here down the stretch. And I know some people would differ with me on that, but I just think that it's going to be either Houston or Florida there in that last one seed spot. But it's a fascinating thing to see who's going to get that final one seed. But here's the thing, no matter what, that final one seed is, again, I think a few steps back than those other three one seeds. Those top three seeds are just incredible teams, and they have been so good this season. And I'm curious to see if each of them can make it to the Final Four. One final thing I wanted to touch on this about this weekend is Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is still a Final Four contender, and maybe you can kind of call them a sleeper now. But man, I just have to give, just big hats off to this team because they lost their best player and National Player of the Year candidate, definitely Big 12 Player of the Year candidate. They lost JT Toppin to a torn ACL for the season a couple games ago in a game they lost against Arizona State. Obviously not a good loss, but when you lose your best player in a game like that, that can be tough. Um, but man, you look at this and you think, man, they lose JT Toppin, the season's over. Like, this is one of the best players, averages like 22 and 10 or 11, 22 points, 11 rebounds a game, like just an absolute freak. You lose him. How can you respond? Like, how can you, continue to be so good? And they went to Iowa State, maybe the hardest environment in all of college basketball, definitely one of them. They have not lost a game this season at Hilton. Iowa State at home has not lost a game. Texas Tech went in there without their best player and they handled Iowa State. Didn't just beat them, handled them from start to finish. Just absolutely handled them. I think it was like 15 or 16 points was the highest lead they had, maybe 17 points. And they just, Iowa State made some runs, but they kept them at bay and, responded, made the big shots they needed to, and won this game in convincing fashion. It wasn't like a huge blowout or anything, but they definitely had, Iowa State's number yesterday and just handled them. And man, I still think they're a threat to make the Final Four. I really do, even without JT Toppin, and certainly with them. I'll tell you, like if the brackets were released and JT Toppin was still there, I was going to put them in the Final Four. But I still am considering it because this team is that dangerous. Christian Anderson is so good. You got good players like Lawan Watts, Atwell. Really, really good team still, even without JT Toppin. So watch out for them come March. I think they're a dangerous team. They're going to be like a 3 or 4 seed probably, and I think they can make a run. Watch out for this team come March. But another great weekend of college basketball. Next week we'll have some more content. And then me and Dalton are going to be doing some, full live streams like we used to do when the brackets are released, and doing conference tournament stuff before that. So be on the lookout for us here in the coming weeks.